Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm your host, Sarah Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of 3 teenagers. And I believe that your body does want to and is capable of rebuilding and healing itself, regardless of what chronic disease you may have. And I'm here for you to answer your questions, bring you innovative and cutting-edge technology and health solutions to empower you and your ability to reach your optimal state of health. Today, my guests, we will be talking about optimizing life performance through digestion, protein, and mental enhancements. And I know that you really need that strong physical foundation to work on your mental growth, whether it's overcoming anxiety and depression, losing weight, detoxing your body in the proper way, and even increasing the level of frequency in life. You need that strong physical foundation in order to gain the willpower to make the bigger changes in life. So if you're new to following me, I help get you there. You can find my health articles, my cutting-edge natural frequency enhanced supplements and devices and protocols at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. I dive into an array of health conditions, their causes and symptoms, and how to address them naturally. I've spent thousands of dollars and hours of my time biohacking different supplements, technologies, and diets that don't work so that you don't have to. If you have any health issues you need help with, you can email me directly through the site. I personally read everyone. Accelerated Health Products is the sponsor of this show. So as you support my website, I'm able to bring you more cutting edge content and guests to this show. Today, as I mentioned, we are going to be diving in on how to optimize performance and increase muscle through digestion and protein and the proper protein and the benefits of living in a higher state of vibration or frequency as a result. So first, I wanted to talk about my monthly free group coaching that comes with my most comprehensive accelerated Ascent diet cleanse. This is the most comprehensive cleanse I have, and the groups that have gone through it are just blowing me away with their results. One lady came to me the other day and said after 27 years of suffering from Hashimoto's, it's cured. It's totally reversed. Her doctors are completely just blown away. The group has reported easy fat loss for those stubborn pounds that just won't work, won't get rid of, they can't get rid of, increased and sustained mental and physical energy, better bowel movements. If you're not pooping, you're not detoxing, so important, a decreased appetite and the ability to intermittent fast, clear skin and wider eyes, better sleep, which we all could use, and less moodiness, which our families would appreciate, improved cellular permeability. And this is the integrity of the cell wall. So essentially, if your cells can't absorb the nutrients coming in, it really doesn't matter what diet you're on, what supplements you're taking, it's just going to be wasted. So this improves that absorption rate of the cells and also the cell's ability to get rid of toxins. At the end of the month, you successfully flush thousands of gallstones out of the body safely. And you get a deeper understanding of how to heal your body and take control of your own health. The difference between me and any other group is that I provide the most cutting edge frequency enhanced supplements that work synergistically with each other in your body so you don't have those flu-like symptoms and you do feel great day one. We start every first Monday of the month. So leave a comment below if you're interested or check it out on the website, acceleratedhealthproducts.com. Now to the good stuff. We have had Wade Lightheart on the show twice, and now today we get his partner and both of them, Matt Gallant, and Matt is the CEO of BiOptimizers. He has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for multiple pro athletes, a self-defense instructor, and has over 10 years experience formulating supplements. He is a keto guy. Now, Wade is a vegan. Wade, as I've mentioned before, is a 3-time Canadian national All Natural Bodybuilding Champion who competed as a vegetarian, former Mr. Universe competitor, and host of the Awesome Health podcast. He also serves as the advisor to the American Anti-Cancer Institute and also is the co-founder and president of BiOptimizers. Hi, guys. How are you today?
Doing great.
Yep, flying high, feeling vibed up.
Awesome. Well, I have to start out with the most obvious, interesting fact about the two of you, vegan and keto. And I've tried the vegan diet, the paleo diet, the vegetarian, I've done carnivore, and now I am more focused on, based on my DNA and what I've been told, what I need to eat. There are a lot of vegetables I can't touch. There's a lot of proteins. I can't touch chicken. Beef is but I really focus on the wild animal proteins and the wild fishes. That's what my body loves. I've got a family of 5. Everyone's protocol and everyone's profile is totally different. So knowing that, I love that you guys have come together and found common ground with supplements that work for everybody. So Matt, why don't we start with you, a little bit about your history and where you're coming from and what's led you to the more ketogenic platform with your protocols?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey with Wade because we spent years arguing with each other. I thought keto was the best answer for everyone, and Wade thought being plant-based was the best. Through that years of arguing and working with different clients, we saw that, hey, we can both achieve amazing results. And I'm with you as far as my own personal philosophy, but we're working on a book that's going to be published next year about this topic. And it's really finding the universal factors that enhances everybody's diets. And you hit a big one. Nutrigenomics is a big one. See, people are focusing on macros. Listen, every macro can work. You can go carb-based, make that work. You can go fats, you can make that work. The one, primary macro that I think a lot of us need to focus on is protein. But even that is a misnomer. It's not really protein that matters. It's amino acids. And if you don't have the enzymes, the proteolytic enzymes to break down protein to aminos, you're not nutrifying your body. And that's something we've been focused on since day one. And that was one of those universal things that Wade and I found. We found that, hey, if we focus on optimizing digestion, you can extract way more amino acids, right? Wade can share his story, but he competed with 85 to 100 grams of plant-based protein a day, which goes completely against the traditional bodybuilding philosophy of you need 200 grams and it needs to be this or that. But the enzymes is the hack. So you can hack your nutrition by using enzymes. And for an example, with Gluten Guardian, which is another one of our products, somebody does want to indulge in gluten or eat dairy, well, there's certain enzymes that will break that down. So you can really minimize the consequences that would typically happen when you try to consume those proteins. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm like you, I thrive on genetically on keto, meats, high fats. I've always felt good. And, listening to how your body feels, like a lot of people try plant-based and they don't feel good, or they try keto and they don't feel good. And I saw that with some of my clients. That's usually a pretty strong signal that you're probably not genetically designed to thrive on that diet. And of course, you can confirm that now with DNA tests and hiring someone to decode your nutrigenomics. So yeah, I think figuring out what your goals are, and then, of course, putting aside spiritual considerations, because for some people to be plant-based, it is a spiritual consideration, and we're respectful of that. But for those of us that it's not, then I think nutrigenomics is one of the strongest ways to optimize your diet.
Yeah, and I love that you touched on people focusing on the macros. I mean, I was eating tons of cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower because they're low carb and ketogenic. And those things, my stomach was bloated. I couldn't process them. And then it was inhibiting the processing of all the foods that my body could work with. So once I healed, I now can touch on some of those foods again in moderation. And then on the other fact, I love that you talk about amino acids, because chicken, whether it's organic or not, has amyloid proteins. Those amyloid proteins can't be broken down in the body or used, and then they get deposited into places like the brain with the amyloid plaques that build up and that sort of thing. And I knew, before I even understood that fact, I knew chicken just didn't work for me. And it's the clean, low fat, low carb food that everyone goes to, and it's on every single menu. And I tell my kids, I will happily pay for the bison or the lamb for you to order instead of getting the chipper chicken. So we know we just don't eat it anymore. And I try to get my clients off of it, and they're shocked at how much better they feel. But let's go, Wade, with being a vegan, and I've got 2 sisters that are vegans. I just don't know how they get the protein in. And this is something that I have had a hard time finding the right protein powder for my clients who insist on keeping their animal protein to a minimum, or are strictly vegan, but want to kind of tap into the ketogenic low carb diet. So let's talk about the journey of finding your formula and where protein supplements or mixes go wrong and what you found.
Yeah, great question. So, and I talked about this in our last podcast. In 2003, I was attempting a vegetarian-based diet using whey protein as a source. So I was using an animal-based protein, but there was no death to animals, so it was okay for my philosophy. But the problem was, after the universe, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water because of the consequences of using a protein powder in order to augment my training. And that's what led us to discover the importance of the microbiome, where it's not what you consume, it's what you digest, absorb, and utilize. And that means it's your enzymes and your gut flora are going to determine, along with your genetics, are going to determine which foods you can actually absorb and utilize. And it turned out that wasn't a very good food for me, even though I looked a certain way. Health-wise, it was damaging to my body. And our mentor at the time, Dr. O'Brien, took us through this whole radical idea of optimizing the microbiome through the use of enzymes and probiotics. And he was the most vibrant senior citizen I've ever met to this day. It was such a deep impact of how he had corrected, in his case, cirrhosis of the liver, cancer, and it, helped Bernard Jensen, the guy that wrote the book on gut health, recover from significant illness with cancer. And that was in his book, Come Alive. You can check all that stuff out. And these seemed like radical, crazy statements. We're not making any claims. But I said, hey, look, obviously this guy knows something we don't. We experimented with it, both Matt and I, simultaneously with our different dietary philosophies. And all of a sudden, both of us was able to achieve outstanding success. So we exposed the biggest assumption and limitation with dietary philosophies, and that is that there is an assumption that what you consume gets delivered into the cells where you need it as either building blocks or energy units. And what we found later on with genetics and epigenetics is that you will have particular dispositions about maybe what based on your ancestors was best for you, or levels of toxicity, or your current microbiome levels. Some of those things are manipulatable, and some of those things aren't manipulatable. And when you know which things you can play with and which things you can't, and how to fix the things that are broken, well, the whole dietary model gets turned upside down. And now you realize that the reason why so many people are struggling is because they're not adding this element, this new information, which is on the bleeding of biohacking. To go back to your specifics, so I needed to put that in there because it's not enough for me to tell you to take this protein and that's going to fix your problems. You need to understand the environment is everything. It's where our foundational line of nutritional supplements and what we became to fame about was optimizing the digestive health, which we were on your podcast earlier talking about that. But over the last 17 years since that time, I have been on a crusade, a quest if you will, to find the ultimate plant-based supplement. And I believe I'm probably one of the top 5 experimenters in the world with the types of plant-based protein. If it's a plant and it has amino acids in it, I've probably eaten it. And there is a range of excellent to god awful, right? Most plant proteins on the store shelves today are what I call a Me Too mediocre. In other words, they're good enough to kind of do the job and not bad enough that you'll suffer through it, but you're not happy about it. And one of the things that I was doing is I was taking independent proteins and trying them independently. So pumpkin protein, rice protein, hemp protein, pea protein, algae protein. I mean, you go down the list, amaranth, quinoa, I mean, all these different things. And over 17 years, it turned out, I think Matt clocks all these things. He's a highly detailed person. I think he did 147 experiments on trying to get the right blend of plant proteins with the right blend of flavors without any of the chemical goop that makes you feel bloated like a lot of plant proteins do. And we solved it. So the 17 years only made the journey sweeter. And so we came up with a product called, I'll show you, it's called Protein Breakthrough. And if we didn't own the company, I would find a way to buy the company, because 17 years of pain and suffering has been solved with probably the best tasting, most effective, easily absorbed meal replacement protein product that the world has ever seen. And mark my words, within the next 2 to 3 years, it will be the dominant brand in the industry because it's so good on all those levels. And we're really excited to share it on your show. We're one of the first shows to hear about it.
I love it, and I can't wait to try it. I've got an 18-year-old son that eats me out of the house. He's an athlete, so he is always like, "Mom, where's my protein? What can I do?" And I've brought protein powders into the house, and none of them, I can tell you, not one, have I looked at it and said, "This is awesome." Like, everything about it, I love it. And it's like, okay, well, let's swap things out, because then at least you're not getting the same bad ingredient over and over and over again, where we're swapping them in and out. So I'm super excited, because protein, as you know, it triggers that CCK signaling in your gut, which tells people, okay, I'm good, I've had enough. Protein is so important. And I know so many vegans out there that are walking them around insulin resistant, bloated, and they're always hungry. But by God, they're not going to have a bite of animal protein, right? So they just don't know how to do it right. And being a vegan is not easy. It is so much easier to incorporate animal protein into your diet. It just makes it a lot easier. You have to do a vegan diet properly to feel good. And I feel like this is an answer that people are waiting for. So I'm really excited.
It is a key aspect. I want to add a couple things to that. And when you're looking for a plant-based protein, now obviously you don't want gluten, you don't want soy, you don't want too many different types of protein, because they become conflictive and confuse the microbiome. In other words, you create digestion. So you see the hopes in a bottle formula that has like 7 different types of proteins, and trying to cover all bases. Not only does it taste bad, it doesn't work well. Your fiber to protein ratio is also another thing. So if you can get around a third is kind of optimal, because the fiber feeds the bacteria, which is the final aspect of the transportation in a vegan protein. And a lot of people don't design it from that standpoint. The other big factor is emulsifiers. This is the thing that screws up most plant protein, because plant protein is kind of clumpy. It doesn't swim. So you don't want all these chemical emulsifiers. So getting the blends right. And then the final piece, which might be the most important, is, does it taste good? Because if it tastes like crap, you can only force that in your face so long, right? I mean, you're kind of like, I know this is good for me, but God, it just tastes terrible. You know, you can't last on that. So we finally were able to crack that, which is really exciting. So what it doesn't have is important. What it does have is more important, and how you can sustain using it. And just as an experiment, let me share with people. I started using this protein to augment a plant-based diet that I'm on. I'm on a 50 weeks to 50 program right now. I'm 9 weeks into the program, and I use two scoops of this a day as my primary protein source outside of beans. Okay, so it's beans and rice and protein breakthrough and this thing. In those 9 weeks, I've lost 21 pounds of pure fat with no loss of muscle at almost 50 years old. And I'm not on any kind of testosterone replacement, no growth hormone, no any of these biohacks that people are using, no insulin mimickers, no metformin, no drugs whatsoever at all. And I did that as part of an experiment, and I'm actually getting close to contest condition again, all on itself. I don't even know how it's happening. And it's something magic with that combination of protein that we're going to be excited about and have people document in their own journeys. But all that to say, with plants, vegans in particular, you identified something. Most of the vegans I've met, because they're protein deficient, end up going off the diet, particularly because they're not able to convert whatever protein they have. They're not making sufficient amino acids to make the polypeptide chains to make their neurochemistry rock and roll. And it turns out Matt is an expert in that, and particularly has been working with one of the world's elite nootropic experts in optimizing deficiencies caused by, overexposure to technology like cell phones. We get these dopamine dependent addictions that burn out our systems, or simply because we don't produce that from a dietary standpoint. So that's a topic you probably want to talk about really soon, because it's another game changer.
No, absolutely. I mean, if your brain's not working, then it doesn't really matter how you're feeling down below, right? I mean, before we switch into that, which I definitely want to touch on, number one, have you seen anyone that doesn't do well on this formula? Any gut dysbiosis, any issues? The thing that I love about you guys is you're so focused on digestion and enzymes. I'm assuming that the protein powder has what's in it that's going to help the absorption and the digestion and not create bloat, and the proper, like you were mentioning, the fiber. So let me
jump into that. Yeah, because probably the biggest bad group of ingredients, and we touched on it, it's the gum. So xanthan gum, guar gum, carrageenan. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, and it's almost impossible to find any meal replacement or protein shake, whether it's powdered or finished, that doesn't have them. And we're really proud to say that we don't. We had to really work on, that's where we had to get into food chemistry to get the emulsification we wanted, because we didn't want just the proteins and the fats floating on the top. But we nailed it. We got it. And I think that's the biggest bloater and gut problem ingredient that most people struggle with when they use proteins. I mean, xanthan gum expands. And a lot of bodybuilders and people use it because they can make these huge volumes of ice cream. But in my experience and our clients' experience, like you don't want xanthan gum in your belly.
No, I agree. And every time I eat any of the things that you just mentioned, my stomach looks like I'm pregnant again and I'm done having kids. So no, thank you. What about sweeteners? Because I know there are a lot of sweeteners that not only could possibly cause cancer, as we know, or ones that make you bloated. I know, malitol and sorbitol and all of those they just kill me. Splenda kills me. And I was totally addicted to it before I knew anything, about gut health. But let's talk about what you're sweetening the protein powder with.
Well, as being a keto guy, obviously I've been experimenting with alternative sweeteners. So I started doing keto when I was 16, 44. So it's been 28 years. And yeah, I've been trying all kinds of alternative sweeteners since day one, right? I mean, back then, Atkins was starting to become huge, and he used a lot of sugar alcohols, which were definitely a no-go for me, especially maltitol, sorbitol. Usually it's a great formula for disaster pants. If anybody's got some, constipation, it'll work for that. And yeah, aspartame, sucralose, those came along, and stevia was one of the first real breakthroughs. But here's the thing with stevia, and we're blessed because we can access all kinds of raw ingredients from around the world. We test everything obsessively. Here's the shocking thing about stevia. If you go from like a 98% extraction and you start getting into the 99s, you get rid of all that bitterness that some people don't like. That's gone. And it makes a quantum difference in terms of the effect. We're big fans of monk fruit. I think monk fruit's a great sweetener that's come on the scene. It's from China. It's hyper sweet. It's almost like if you try pure monk fruit powder, it's almost like a caramel flavor. And then erythritol is a good one. So if we get into sugar alcohol, so xylitol will impact blood sugar, and it does have more calories per gram than erythritol. So we're not fans of xylitol, but erythritol, it's incredibly low impact, like 0.2 calories per gram. So it's really, really minimal, and it tastes good. And then we use the gram of palm sugar. So here's the big secret in terms of the sweetness. It's really combining them, and it's combining them in the right ratio. So that's what we spent a long, long time working on. Because if you just use one, you kind of get weirdness. And if you look at how your palate works, you have all these different kind of layers to it. And what we found is that when you use 4 sweeteners like that, you tend to hit the whole palate, and you don't get the weird taste effects.
Yeah, and I've noticed that in different products when they combine the stevia and the monk fruit, especially, it's a much better taste than stevia on its own or monk fruit on its own. So I am super excited to try the protein powder, and I know my clients are, because it is needed. I mean, it's just whether you're vegan or not, or you're just hitting the gym and wanting that extra boost of protein. Before we get into brain and nootropics, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with Wade and Matt. Welcome back to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm Sarah Banta, your host here, and I'm here with Wade Lightheart and Matt Gallant, and we are talking all things from BiOptimizers, one of my favorite companies, and they definitely define biohacking in this world, which is something that I love doing myself. Matt, what's so crazy is you were on it enough to be ketogenic at such a young age, but I think there was more to your history as well, mentally, and maybe with some depression or addiction issues. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your history?
Sure. So I'm born with the wiring of an alcoholic, both on both sides. My dad, grandfather, great-grandfather, a lot of alcoholism. And the first moment I drank like an alcoholic. Like, there was never like a social phase. I just, if I would have done a test, I would have definitely proven or passed as an alcoholic. And there was kind of I spent 20 years working on being functional, kind of a functional drug addict, functional alcoholic. And, there was a lot of times where I was unfunctional, but that was the goal and the dream. And when I was 32, I hit bottom. Yeah, I've been sober for 12 years, and it's been, the best decision I've ever made. Part of that's price I paid for that, especially the last few years, which Wade witnessed. There was a lot of damage, just not treating my brain or my body too well. And when I came back and started my sobriety journey, it took me like 2-3 years for me to want to be productive again and really start to find my stride. I could work like 20 hours a week. But when I was around 35, I started noticing memory issues. So I was like short-term memory issues. And that really freaked me out because my grandmother had dementia. I saw her go from functional to literally not being able to remember like 10 minutes what happens, and just total loss of connection with reality. So I was scared. I was a little freaked out. So start researching just how to optimize the brain, and I kind of can walk you through a lot of things that worked. First was, lion's mane, EFAs. That was very impactful. So essential fatty acids, the brain is composed of a lot of fats. So DHA in particular can be very profound. Most people have a significant DHA deficiency, especially vegans, vegetarians. It can be problematic to find that. That was impactful. Started doing low-level laser light therapy. That was impactful. So V-Light's a great company that produces headsets where you're literally blasting your brain with lasers. They're doing amazing research on a lot of brain conditions and getting great results. That really helped. And then when I saw the results from that, I'm like, okay, that's awesome. We can optimize the brain. It was kind of a revelation that you could change your brain that much. Then Wade went to do neurofeedback, and then he brought me with him a few weeks later. And that was a game changer, doing a week of neurofeedback. And then I've spent another 6 weeks of my life after that doing that. That's been profound. And simultaneously started playing around with nootropics, smart drugs. So there's not much I haven't done. I mean, obviously started with things like modafinil, which worked. But what I didn't like about it was the next day I felt like I paid the price. Like I'd get an extra day of energy from it, be able to focus for 10, 12 hours. But the next day there was a down. Didn't like that. And there were certain things that worked, and I'd use them once in a while, like if I needed a big day. And simultaneously studying neurochemistry, both from a marketing perspective, a human nature perspective, and just from optimizing performance. And then I realized that if you can optimize your neurochemistry, you can create new states of mind. If you study high performance states, there's a lot of ways you can break them down, but one of them is neurochemistry. And we met a man, we call him Mr. Newts, not his real name, but we're keeping his identity secret for now, that, he was a genius. He's a super genius. He's cracked the code on so many things, from extractions to stacks. I worked with him for several months, and we created what I think is the ultimate nootropics. And I've got a box here. It's a set of 9 different nootropics that all have different purposes. Now here's what we did that no one's doing. We're customizing every single order, and we're hand capping and hand compounding every single order. So it's everything's customized. You can change your formulas every month, including every base formula can be changed. If you say, hey, that was too much stimulation, we can pull that back. Some people want more. We can change whatever we want. It's total customization, total personalization. And they're game changers. Your ability to be not just in a high performance state, but in a variety of high performance states, from being more chill to being hyper focused to being really hyper focused, and all the variations of that. It's a game changer. When you start looking at dopamine, acetylcholine, noradrenaline, adrenaline, cortisol, serotonin, anandamide, oxytocin, and GABA, and you play with the ratios of these neurochemicals, you're able to, again, shift your whole reality. And it's awesome. It's like a dream come true for me personally. And yeah, people are obsessed with the product, and the people using them are loving it. So.
Well, it's interesting too, because you're talking about the neurotransmitters, and you also are so focused on gut health. And we all know that our gut has a definite direct effect on our brain health. And then couple that with the environment we're in right now and the increase, like multiples of the addiction, anxiety and depression rates right now. It's so awful to see. I mean, I've got my 3 kids and what's going on with them and their friends. And so even in the young kids, it's really a problem. When you started looking at this, what are you finding why most people do suffer from ADHD or poor focus or memory loss? I know that when I had a concussion and was in a car accident, that is when my memory went, my anxiety went through the roof. And I was not someone that ever had anxiety issues or brain issues. I did great in school, but that was around the time that I was introduced to exogenous ketones, and that gave me that boost. So obviously there's one step right there for, at least for me, that was a game changer. Let's walk through what are people missing when they are experiencing ADHD, anxiety, depression, all these issues.
So in my opinion, the 3 layers of the brain is neurostructural, neuroelectrical, and neurochemical. So different issues can be looked at and there's better models for different problems. For example, anxiety, it's usually too much beta brain waves in the front part of the brain, which is trainable. So you can remove that through neurofeedback as an example. Now, focus usually is acetylcholine deficiencies, which nutritionally you can get from eggs, but it's also how you utilize the choline. And are you replacing it? Are you utilizing it? So when we build stacks, what we do that I think is very unique in the supplement world is we look at optimizing all the conversions. So we look at the biopathway of, okay, how does the body actually produce a neurochemical? And how does it utilize it? And then we bake that into the capsule or into the tubes so that you're able to not just feed your brain that chemical, but utilize it. And that's a huge game changer. We're talking about how to build stacks. So yeah, it just depends what issues people have. Now, if you're talking about drive to get things done, people that are driven have incredibly strong dopamine systems. Almost every entrepreneur, again, if you can see that in your nutrigenomics. Now, you can feed your brain dopamine. You can feed your brain, you can activate dopamine, you can utilize it better. And when you have the right amount of dopamine and adrenaline, that's focus, that's drive, and then the acetylcholine allows you to maintain that. So these are some of the things you can change. And even things like Adderall, what's Adderall doing? It's adrenaline dopamine. It's very powerful and it works. Now, the issues, that's also the neurochemistry of an a-hole. So if you crank those too high, that's what most people become. And you can do that even just being stressed out and driven, and you don't even need Adderall to be like that. And that's where adding things like GABA and serotonin and oxytocin and anandamide can make you a much more connected person. Your EQ goes up. You're able to just stay grounded while you have the drive, while you have the focus. And that's what we're doing with the stacks. Because I was super driven before, but as a leader, I would lose connection sometimes, and I didn't understand it from a neurochemistry perspective. So it's just been a game changer. And again, depending what you want to try to fix, there's a different answer. Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to bring up with this importance and where nootropics as class-wise. There's the drug nootropics, there's food nootropics, and then there's supplemental nootropics. And the biggest problem that happens with most nootropics is they treat everybody that they have the same brain, and they hammer the nervous system. And so when you understand neurochemically, and the first guy, kudos to Charles Poliquin, who was using a Braverman test to determine neurochemical dominance, to determine how to train his athletes based on neurochemical replenishment. And there's 3 issues that people have to consider when they're looking at nootropics: dominance, deficiency, and depletion. Dominance is the primary neurochemical that you live on. So most athletes are either going to be dopamine or acetylcholine. Maybe if you're more creative, you're going to be on one of the other neurochemicals. If you're kind of a chilled out person, maybe you really respond well to GABA. You'll have a certain neurochemical dominance, and it's not just one, it'll be a variety and a specific ratio, and that contributes a lot to personality kind of types, and often will lead you to different career paths. No one's talking about that. The second thing is when you get into a depletion stage, that's usually because you get locked into one particular neurochemical feedback, and you keep hitting that over and over and over again, depleting all your neurochemicals, which is one of the consequences of the abuse of nootropic drugs.
Right.
Then there's the third issue, which is deficiency. Now, deficiency may occur, like we referred to earlier, which is you're not able to convert the protein that you're eating. Either you don't have enough protein, or you don't have the microbiome to support the conversion of that protein into the amino acids that's going to make these neurochemicals inside your brain. Or you're, for whatever reason, you just don't make it. You don't have it in your diet. You're not able to access those neurochemicals. And there's a whole state of the human condition that isn't available to you. You see people experiencing that. You see people connected in their heart. You see people able to maintain focus for extensive period of times. You see people with social fluency, and you go, well, I'm not like that. And so what Nootopia has done is we've been able to identify the particular combinations and compounds that get delivered to the brain to fill up any depletionary situations, to address any dominance issues where you ran into depletion. And then you can select. So instead of just hammering the nervous system, we're literally filling up the bucket of neurochemicals over time so that you have sustained effect that increases. And then you, the customer, then customize which formulas seem to be working best for your brain. And one of the most remarkable things that we experience at our company is that we have our whole team's on the nootropic stacks. And when we get on our meetings, we ask specifically, what stack are you on today? And people will select the stack, whether it's a focus or whether they need to be on a podcast such as this, or they need to be very creative in their thinking. But what's interesting is the uniqueness of each brain and who will respond to what products. And what I might like is not something that, our team, and each team member is different, and we trade stories. And now it becomes a fun talking point and something that gives us more data, more feedback. And so now we've created an app for Nootopia. Our customers come in. There's a sequence to how they test to find out their own brain chemistry, how they optimize that. And then as they get onto the formulas, because they're so life-changing, they start customizing. Say, well, I want more, neocortex nectar. I want to, I don't need as much focus ferocity. I would like to add a little bit more brain flow because I like to be in that flowy state, or, and it now you get to be able to be the determination of how your neurochemical goes. And then whatever you're doing for neurofeedback training, let's say, you can accelerate results from any cognitive program that you're engaged in, whether that's learning at a traditional school, using a neurofeed program, or working with a professional in the area that's addressing particular deficiencies or skill set that you want to develop. So it's a remarkable leap forward, and we're delighted to bring it to the world.
Awesome. So we only have a couple more minutes left, but I wanted to address where it's different from, say, taking an Adderall, where you're completely depleted and your body, if you talk about thyroid medication or any sort of glandular type of supplement, your body says, oh, well, I'm getting plenty from the outside. I don't need to produce any of the GABA or serotonin or dopamine anymore because I'm getting it from a pill. So is this working with your body to encourage your body to make more of those neurotransmitters, or is it going to shut off the production of those neurotransmitters naturally?
No, we're all about precursors. So we're just wrapped up a sleep formula as an example. Melatonin, I think nobody, unless they're traveling or once in a while, because there's shifting times when she use melatonin, it'll downregulate. So same thing with the brain. We're all about feeding it the precursors and giving it the conversion cofactors that will amplify the conversions. That's our approach, because I'm 100% with you. It's always better to just enhance the body's own production of things than it is to feed it exogenous versions of it.
Awesome. Well, before we go, why don't you guys tell us where we can find all of these amazing things, especially the protein and the new Nootopia. Wade? Oh, you're mute.
You're muted, Wade.
I accidentally mute so you don't get the background stuff. Yeah, you can just go to BiOptimizers.com and put /accelerated, put in accelerated 10. You can get all of the 10% discounts. By the way, all of our products are backed by a 100% money back guarantee. We'll even pay the shipping to bring it back if you're not completely blown away by it. We also have ongoing education courses, including the Awesome Health Formula. It's a whole thing, biological blueprint for optimization book, the blueprint for biooptimization, from sick to superhuman, which is a big fan favorite. You can get a copy of that as well, because we're not just about randomly shotgunning supplements. We want to take you on a journey that allows you to sequentially address the issues with the time, energy, and money, your most precious resources, to get the most bang for your buck and to be able to deliver our products or service in a way that allows you to increase your education while improving your health and vitality. And we're really excited about it. And of course, we take all the risk away.
I love it. I love the biohacking you guys do. I love that you're not just, going after the brain or going after the muscle building. You're starting with the foundation of gut, of digestion, of absorption, and it is a journey. And I can't stand it when someone comes to me and say, well, what's the one supplement I should take? Because it isn't that. It's lifestyle, it's sleep, it's are you meditating? Are you doing all these other things? There's not just one magic bullet. So thank you guys for joining us today. And next time we need to talk about magnesium, because that is something that everyone is deficient in. And it is also hard to find a really good supplement. So we didn't talk about it today, but for those of you interested, look at their website for their magnesium. It is one that I highly recommend. I have to be super careful with what magnesium I'm taking, and this one works for me. So thanks, guys, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If I can help you with your health issues, you can contact me directly through acceleratedhealthproducts.com. I'm happy to put together a protocol for you, and I know it's sometimes hard to know where to start. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products, and you can find this episode and all of my episodes on every podcast platform you know of, over 100 channels, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Pandora, and whatever podcast platform you subscribe to. I also do Accelerated Health Bites, where I do short informational videos and health topics and solutions that you ask me about. So if you have an issue you want me to address, just let me know. If you like what you heard today, please hit the subscribe button and share with a few friends who may need my help. And as you share, my channel helps me help more people like you and bring more cutting edge guests like Wade and Matt to my show. Don't miss our shows every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And thanks for joining us. Have a great week.
It was a pleasure, Sarah. Thank you.